I will talk about some tangible aspects of your sector. Your sector
Yes.
is an assembly sector. A lot of
Yes.
raw materials come from different parts of the world.
Yes.
China being one of them. China is one of the
Yes.
major suppliers of the raw material,
Correct.
primarily steel, if we
Yes.
in that. Now, you are a Chinese company in the end, but do you think globally there will be some change in the permutations and combinations of supply chain as far as steel is concerned? And I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
you're a Chinese company in the end, but I would like you to answer this question from the heart, which I assume is
Mm.
Swedish.
Absolutely. That's the only way I know how to answer it. So that's the way I will answer it.
Yeah.
The I think this is, the sourcing, and this is a bit beyond my area of expertise. So let me preface it with that. But I think when I look at our own supply chain, and I look at then the greater Volvo supply chain, we're actually in a much better position than we were, say, 10 years ago. Right now we have, you know manufacturing in the US, we have manufacturing in Belgium, in Sweden, in China, in Malaysia, and in India, right? This is a global footprint that 10 years ago we didn't have. So from a Volvo perspective, actually, we're, I think, in a much better place to handle this than we would have, say, 10 years ago. But certainly, that when all of the practices of, that just-in-time delivery has, placed a major strain on everything, right? And this, as we look forward, there certainly is the possibility that, movements of goods across borders could become more challenging. If we start thinking about future-proofing our supply chain for the next, we need to make sure that if something like this happens again, where the world needs to be more prepared. So do we need to have, multi-sourcing? Do we need to think about having, perhaps more stock than the just-in-time solutions currently have? I think all of those decisions need to happen, and I think in general the manufacturing sector needs to be more resilient to something like this, and I think we'll definitely see that happen.
And that would
You know,
include
and
variety
and
in the
and,
supply
and
chains.
Abhinav and Abhishek, I would say Charles has been gracious to answer your question, but really, in spite of whatever be the ownership, Volvo has a certain core value.
Mm.
Even when I interact with Charles, who I've known him about a year, I can see that he lives those values, of trust, of endurance. There is a certain um, pillars on which the company is based, and that's what keeps it going. So I think um, let's focus on the auto sector in India, and let's focus on mobility. Let's focus on leadership. Uh, you know, because everyone is worried. Let me ask you a question from a marketing standpoint. I know you're the CEO, but and we put it in our question to you: will the auto companies post-lockdown bring back their marketing activities? Will the
Mm-hmm.
marketing budgets come back to 100? Will they be less than 100? More than 100?
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you are thinking? How do you think other auto companies are thinking?
Well, I can, as a, I think my history is in marketing, and of course, this is something that we definitely need to be very strategic and forward looking in our plans for marketing and communications. I think naturally during this time, with all dealerships in India closed, that certainly the um, very tactical level marketing to get people to come into a dealership today, that's the kind of messaging and things that don't that really doesn't need to be spent at this moment. But our marketing activities have not stopped during this time, right? I think that this is a very critical time to communicate with your existing customers and with potential new customers, right? But definitely more at a brand level. This time of crisis is an excellent opportunity for us to show that we are a human-centric company that cares about people. That's best demonstrated by our laser-like focus on safety and safety throughout the years since our very beginning. And I think that it gives us the opportunity that when things open up, you know, that safety in cars will translate into COVID safety. We will be thinking about customers. We are actively thinking about how we can make sure that we are taking care of customers from a safety perspective now, so that when things open up, we'll be able to do that, right? And this message of care, this message of safety is there's a real environment right now to talk about those things that I think that is very relevant for Volvo. So we are active primarily digitally on social media. We're using personal WhatsApp messages to customers from dealership staff, from Volvo staff, because this is the time I think that if someone reaches out to you and checks that you're okay, if someone reaches out to you and say, hey, by the way, you should really think about at least walking out to your car and starting it so it won't, if it's been sitting there for 6 weeks, let's we want to make sure that it's okay. That kind of message, I think even now there's a time, is a time for that. And then going forward, I can tell you about how we're planning, right? I mean, basically we have taken, like all manufacturers, we have taken our marketing spend down a bit at the moment. I would say significantly, because we have to think about business continuity and cash flow, right?
And totally expected.
But we've already aligned with Sweden that we have a pool of money to get back to business. So we've even clarified an amount of budget that we are very flexible in using to get back to business.
Sure.
So we will come, immediately out when dealerships open up with a message that it is safe to come to a Volvo dealership. It is safe to have your car serviced. Here are the things that we are doing. Very direct messaging to give customers, an understanding that working with us, will be a safe experience. In fact, we're exploring one of the things that I think is this situation is pushing is, online sales, right? This is something that we, that hasn't, you can buy everything else online, but cars has always been off of that. And so, I think many of us are looking at
online, see the features online, see the pricing online, but actually do a test drive before you buy.
Yes.
So, that physical touch was always there in cars.
Yes. So this, I think we're looking at launching, and this is certainly a marketing initiative as well, to have a contactless program where you can buy your Volvo contactlessly, right? And I think also with this approach, we're looking at a very human approach, right? Using perhaps the tools that customers are already comfortable with, using Zoom. Everybody now knows how to use Zoom, right? Why not be able to interact with your sales consultant online in a very human way? Maybe it doesn't have to be a click to buy. It can be interact with a person and be able to buy online. So this is something that we're looking at and we're willing to invest in, right? I think we want, India is a resilient place, right? And people, when people come back, I think there's going to be a segment of society that wants to have their own car and want to feel safe. And we want to be there when that happens. And marketing is a critical tool in doing that.
Abhishek, you want to ask?
Yeah. So since your foray in India, Volvo has never participated at the Auto Expo, unlike other OEMs. Now, other OEMs are taking a cue from you. They are shying away, like companies like Audi, Jaguar, Land Rover, Harley Davidson. So, did Volvo foresee it long time back that Auto Expo is not a platform where you can reach out to your customers?
Hmm.
And if yes, I mean, then why is Volvo participating in other global shows like Shanghai, not the Detroit Auto Show, that Geneva Auto Show? This time Geneva didn't happen, but other auto shows you are participating. So do you
Hmm.
think Auto Expo that is in India, it's not a platform where you can showcase your product and where you can reach out to customers? Your thoughts?
Yeah. We as a company have taken a global view towards auto shows. So the shows that you mentioned, Geneva, um,
Detroit.
Geneva, Detroit, and either Shanghai or Beijing on alternate years. Those are the three, only the three shows that we have participated in. The rest of the shows globally, we have not chosen to participate. I think that we're, and I think they've chosen those shows for their international reach and being able to interact with international media and such. And I think that's why those have been chosen. But as a domestic marketing priority, that is a direction that Volvo has stepped away from. And it's not just in India; it's globally. And it's something that I agree with, especially from India. This is the luxury business is still small and growing, and I tend to think we need to have more branded, more personal contact with the customers that we're trying to reach, that perhaps that the motor show is difficult to deliver. So we like to have a little more control over our brand than what can be offered in global motor shows. And that's nothing saying against Expo or any other show. That's just the way that the approach that we've taken as a brand.
Thank you. One last question, and then we can go from each one of you, and I have one. Siddharth?
Sir, 2019 was a great year for Volvo, selling above 7 lakh vehicles globally. And even like I have driven the XC40, and XC40 is coming in electric, supposed to
Yes.
come in electric in 2021.
Yes.
And then in India, we are expecting the S60 Mark III coming in.
Yes.
So now COVID is here. It's an unprecedented situation. So what is your forecast? And do we still see the S60 and the XC60, XC40 recharge coming?
The answer is absolutely yes. But the phasing and timing of that, I think we need to be realistic that it could be, in a world where everything's changing, we need to adjust to the right time. I mean, the first would be S60, and we had talked about bringing that this year. This is a very special car for us, and I want to make sure that we're launching into an environment that is ready to receive it, so it can be the success that we want it to be, right? So I think from I want to see how the business develops, right? And I want to come in with a big bang, so people can feel the excitement of this car that it deserves, right? And hopefully that time will come at the end of, in the fourth quarter of this year, perhaps. Could it be the first quarter of next year? I think we need to read as information comes in, I think we'll make that call. But that car is coming, and we're very excited about it. With the XC40 Recharge, our first full electric vehicle, that car now will be coming probably the end of this year in Europe, and then we typically follow about a year later. So timing wise, that's kind of I don't have a perfect timeline for that, but I think that's been our cadence, and that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. So but S60 is certainly going to be the hot topic for us with our next launch.
Great.
Abhishek?
Yeah. Sir, there's a lot of talk about COVID tests on multiple products. Like it will be imposed on alcohol, it will be imposed on cigarettes, but also automobiles, I mean cars and bikes. So what are your views on that? Do you think that multiple layers of taxation are back, or you think GST is a perfect tax structure and with COVID, nothing going to impact. There will be no impact on sentiment and all.
Yeah, I guess there's, it's always dangerous to wade into these political areas. But there's a couple of things that I would like to weigh in on this. I would say, first, when in the automotive industry, and especially in the luxury automotive industry, we the government can and their policies can sometimes get a bad rap. I think we should at least look at the positives in some way, right? The incentives that are already in place are driving full electric vehicles, and that if they can keep that consistency for us, that's number one, right?
Absolutely.
If that happens, then we are very happy. Now, would I like to see that some tax relief? If I look at other countries, the tax for luxury cars versus non-luxury cars is especially burdensome in India. That is the way it's set up. I think it's already very difficult to run a global luxury business in India, and to have any further difference between luxury and non-luxury, I feel would be very challenging for us. So my hope is that it doesn't get worse. I'm not looking, in these times, we need to be good corporate citizens. I'm not looking for some kind of, short-term tax incentive or anything, but I think that the variance between luxury and non-luxury shouldn't change. That's what I would ask, looking at tax policy, right? And then keeping the incentives for the future of mobility, which is, battery electric vehicles, keeping that in place. That's what I would like to see from this.
So COVID.
Abhinav, your last question.
Charles, do you fear job losses and salary increments in the sector within India? Because I see something similar has been happening in Sweden, especially pertaining to your company.
Yeah, I think that there are. It's a tough situation, right? I mean, and we have to look at the business reality and business continuation. They've had to make some very tough calls in Sweden that were announced last week. That I think is challenging. We've had discussions with Sweden that at the moment it's not affecting the sales companies throughout the world, right? It's a Sweden point at the moment. But I think we need to be realistic. How long does this last? Could there be an impact? Yes, there could be. But what I can say is that this is our last resort, right? I think, and not only from a Volvo internal perspective, but from our dealers as well. We've gone out to our dealers and made a direct investment to pay for 1 full month of their employee salaries. So we've gone out and announced that for them and are doing that.
Fantastic.
To express, intent of keeping jobs, right? And, keeping the great people that are working on our brand, working with us. We've been very lucky, I think, to be able to pay out our bonuses to our own employees this year. That just came out in our paychecks yesterday. So I think that's a boost for our own employees. That's been good. But I think it would be very challenging for me to make a long-term promise for our future that this couldn't be part of our future, that we would have to look at jobs and pay. But at the moment, that's not the case, and that's not what we're doing. In fact, I think we're going beyond our own company and looking at our dealers to help them as well.
Thank you, Charles. I'd like to ask you the last question and we can close. Charles, if you had to give a message to all people watching this interview or reading your interview, what would be that message to corporate leaders, to leaders of the auto sector, to colleagues in various companies? what would be your message?
I think that's, I like that question a lot. To me, the most important thing right now, and what I would like to say to everybody is, now is the time for empathy, right? All of us are dealing with an incredibly difficult time. So whenever you're, give the other person you're talking about the benefit of the doubt. Now is the time to be nice to each other. Now is the time to understand each other and realize that, that we're dealing with something that is, I think in our lifetimes, something that is a crisis of huge proportion, and all of us are going to react to that in different ways, right? And I think understanding the situation that that person is in, and understanding they may not have the same situation as you, now is the time to really practice empathy and be nice to each other. That's the message I would like to have go out.
Thank you, Mr. Charles Frump, for talking to BW Business World and BW Auto World. We thank you for this interview, and I'm sure our readers, our viewers will benefit from your empathetic attitude and from your compassionate attitude and from your human-centric leadership. So we wish Volvo India all the luck, and we look forward to having a conversation again with you soon. Thank you, Charles. Good luck.
Thank you, Anurag, and thanks to Business World for
Thank
having
you,
me today.
everyone. Thank you.